5G equals Georgia Guidestones.
Look at what money actually is. Look at what it is. It literally is a serpent on a staff. Like it is that which binds you. And the people that are pushing this are the biggest slaves of all.
Archons?
Practice these words in front of the mirror. Although we are constantly exploring the subject, currently, there is no direct evidence that links cell phone usage to brain cancer.
I have no home. Abandoned. Despised. Living like an animal. The jungle is my home. That I will show the world that I can be its master. I will perfect my own race of people. A race of atomic supermen which will conquer the world.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects, So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do. 5G is a conversation about unsustainable healthcare expenditures. Why do I say this? We've been sitting on the evidence for EMR and chronic disease for decades. And now we are seeing all these epidemics appearing. So diabetes is the first epidemic. I think most of you know the statistics. They're very scary. 1 in 3 American children will become diabetic in their lifetime, and if they're Hispanic females, the number is 1 in 2. So what does this have to do with wireless radiation? Wireless radiation and other electromagnetic fields, such as magnetic fields and dirty electricity, have been clearly associated with elevated blood sugar and diabetes. That is what the peer-reviewed literature says. It is not opinion. The closer you live to a cell tower, the higher your blood glucose. That is based on hemoglobin A1C measurements. So the idea with small cells of putting the cells closer to people's homes and bedrooms scientifically is very dangerous. And from an economic perspective, it's dangerous. And you may not know this. I was shocked to find this out. But the way you create a model of diabetes in rats in the lab is by exposing them to 2.4 gigahertz. And this is not for long-term exposure. So I don't have time to talk about the costs, but the huge problem with diabetes really is chronic kidney disease. End-stage renal disease, the worst complication of diabetes, leads to hemodialysis. Hemodialysis is an automatic qualification for Medicare. And if you don't qualify for Medicare, we still have to dialyze the patient. And the state ends up paying in many different instances. So renal failure is 1% of Medicare, but it takes up 7% of all Medicare expenditures. I don't have time to talk about this anymore, but once again, so the other epidemics that clearly link from the science with electromagnetic radiation are related to mental health. And this is straight from PubMed. This isn't my opinion. This is science. Okay?
For those of us who aren't physicians, what is PubMed?
I'm sorry. It's just it's our National Library of Medicine. This is where you would go. This is just the peer-reviewed literature. So we have 3 epidemics that clearly, they're essentially one epidemic. We have deterioration of mental health in the United States. And if you look really at the science, what does it show? And these epidemics are our suicide epidemic, epidemics in violent, shootings, and the opioid epidemic. And I don't have 5 minutes is not the time to talk about this. This is in the peer-reviewed literature. I have a file to submit for the record, but these are facts. These are things that have just been glossed over by the wireless industry, and I really don't have time to talk about them in 5 minutes. I wish I did. But we need to examine our epidemics in the context of our EMF exposures. What does that mean? That means that the CDC, tracking these epidemics, we need to start measuring how much radiation are people being exposed to. And before we roll out 5G, and this means there are 4 kinds of electromagnetic fields that we know are harmful to human health. So radio frequency radiation, magnetic fields, dirty electricity, and electric fields. Okay? Our exposure, any given person, and all humans are affected by EMFs. Our given exposure has nothing to do with the research that my colleagues are going to cite with the National Toxicology Program. That is an assessment of the risk of 1 cell phone in the near field. Okay? What is our exposure in a day? It's not 1 cell phone. It's cell phones, it's multiple wireless networks, it's smart meters, it's cell towers. It's this sandwich, and it all adds up. And this is a serious problem for occupational health, public safety, and personal safety. And I feel that it's irresponsible to be even talking about the Internet of Things and rolling out a new untested technology when we're not even measuring what are our current exposures from the current networks.
to our television sets, even when the set was turned off.
Come, no back talk. You'll taste the electric whip. Oh, God!
You know, when you think about the things that mainstream is now reporting, if you go back to a really important article, it was 1998, now 20 years old, and it was called "The Mind Has No Firewalls," and it was a reprint from an article that was originally in a Russian journal called Orienteer, a military journal. And what it talked about, and was later absolutely supported in mainstream reports within the United States and academic studies, was the idea that any electromagnetic carrier, any system that can carry a signal, can carry a signal, a signal on it that allows you to manipulate the behavior of people within contact of that signal. Now, what can be used is the internet, telephone, radio networks, power grids, any of the things that essentially carry a part of the electromagnetic spectrum that you can manipulate. And so this is essentially what has happened. Now, the idea of being able to have a more targeted effect rather than affecting general populations, this is possible using cell phone systems that then are actually tagging a specific individual who can be linked into that system. So when you think of surveillance, don't just think about the idea of looking at what you're doing, but also beginning now, and has been for some time, influencing what you're doing. Now, when you look in real time at brain activity, for instance, in the gaming industry, when games are being evolved, Facebook and the way it operates, virtually all of these electronic interfaces are monitored because the objective of the inventors is to make you come back. And that means they want to trigger the portions of your brain associated with two things: drug addiction and orgasm, sexual activity, the things that will make your brain come back to those same sources to get that charge again, to get that dopamine release again, to get serotonin levels changed. All of these chemical changes occur by the energetic changes. This is called biophysics. It is what the science tells us.
As Electric Man goes inside this resonating envelope of information, he joins this subconscious world that had previously been created by ages of private consciousness, and the gap between the private and the collective consciousness ends.
Loops out tape. On these tapes are recorded what one says on one track, what one feels on another track, and what one does on a third track. And these are endless loops. And one tends to repeat these again and again and again. We will illustrate by using repeating words, repeating sentences, and repeating ideas, how one can get involved in such repetitional processes, and what sort of traps, blind alleys, evasions, hindrances, and refusals can develop in the face of such externally forced repetition.
This picture shows some aphids on the leaf of an orange tree shortly after radar equipment was installed at a nearby airport a number of years ago. I noticed that every few seconds, all the aphids would tense up in unison and do sort of a little dance, as you see in the picture. Upon further investigation, I found that the interval of time between the activity of each dance coincided exactly with the rotation of the radar rotor device at the airport, which was a distance of approximately 14 miles.
The definition of a smart grid is a wireless system that will fundamentally turn every single appliance in your home into the equivalent of a transmitting cell phone. That's every computer, every television, every furnace, every air conditioner, every coffee machine, every printer, every single appliance that you have in your house will eventually, in a smart grid, have an antenna that's embedded into it that will transmit your usage data to a smart meter on the outside of your home that will then transmit your usage data to another tower receiving a usage signal that will then go to the utility company for supposedly billing purposes. Not all signals will just be about your individual use. There will be aggregate meters that will bounce signal from house to house to house within a neighborhood that will then accumulate all of the usage data that will transmit that to the utility company. Now, what that will do is that the end metering system that is transmitting all of that data will be firing an RF signal at many, many times a second, which will increase the average homeowner's radio frequency radiation exposure exponentially.
That'll teach us to get ideas.
But boss, you know I don't get any ideas.
Well, see that you don't.
Frenemy in your pocket is about to get a huge upgrade in terms of its surveillance capabilities with the new 5G network. Also, though you've probably been aware for a while that your mobile phone spies on you, with the new 5G network, a weird thing's going to start happening where essentially your phone is not only going to be spying on you, but your phone will actually be helping to spy on everybody else.
Where am I? In the village. What do you want? Information. Whose side are you on? That would be telling. We want information. 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 You won't get it.
by hook or by crook, we will.
Who are you?
The new number 2.
Who is number 1?
You are number 6.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
Okay, satellite imagery coming through.
Roger that. Patch visual my location.
Some of the effects that we can look at, well, one thing is just our regular Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz. That's in the same range as microwave ovens, which are also called radar ranges, because that is radar. 2.4 gigahertz is interesting. It's not the peak absorption rate in water for microwave frequencies, but it's at a point where it allows full penetration, because if it came in at the peak, it would prevent the insides from getting warm. So that's with basic Wi-Fi. Now when we look at 5G, 60 gigahertz, this is what they call active dispersal sort of weaponry, just keep people back. It burns the skin, it doesn't penetrate, but 60 gigahertz is the frequency of oxygen molecule absorption. Since they have electrons that they share with each other, what we breathe is actually O2, pair of oxygen. So being bombarded with 60 gigahertz could very well impair our oxygen absorption rates in our body, and thereby the whole basis of our living system. Martin Paul says, putting tens of millions of 5G antennas without a single biological test of safety has to be about the stupidest idea anyone has had in the history of the world. So assessing all this, we have experts in various fields: military EMF weaponry, biological effects on humans, firefighters that are getting cognitive impairment by being in them, countries that are banning these sort of technologies around schools because of the impairment to cognitive. Let's weigh that up in light of what Rudolf Steiner said in 1924 about just mere radio causing the impairment of cognitive functions on people, that they can receive news from around the world, but they can't understand it as well because of the effect of the electricity. We have to say, something smells sinister here.
Do not be afraid. This is Electra from planet Zircon. We want to make friends with you Earth people. We are going to land.
Mr. Science.
It's definitely been the case, well, you may well know that although mobile phones are pretty handy, I think that's the German word for mobile phone, isn't it? Handy. Albeit a very, very convenient thing to have in your life, they are, of course, also backstabbing you, well, snitching on you, telling people of your whereabouts, you know, informing a shadowy set of people exactly what your whereabouts are, or have been, even when you haven't done anything wrong. Sort of collecting criminal evidence against you, just in case you one day become a criminal. It's a bit awkward.
Something
going on? My spider sense is tingling. I don't like this.
Welcome, Spider-Man.
Shoes for industry. Shoes for the dead. Shoes for industry. Hi, I'm Joe Beats. Hey, what chance does a returned deceased war veteran have for that good-paying job, more sugar, and the free mule you've been dreaming of? Well, think it over. Then take off your shoes. Now you can see how increased spending opportunities means harder work for everyone, and more of it, too. So do your part today, Joe. Join with millions of your neighbors and turn in your shoes. For industry.
Okay, smart technology, smart meters, smart cars, not that smart, huh? What does smart mean?
Anything that has smart attached to it, secret militarized armaments in residential technology. That's where smart came from. And smart, every bit of technology that you see today has all been developed for either some type of battlefield, some type of intelligence gathering system, and obviously these developments have to be commercialised, and people have actually took them into their homes.
And oh, brothers and sisters, I ask you to look at him. Does he have the marks? Do you see them? No. You see him as we were before the punishment, before we gained grace. You see lying there the last of scientists, of bankers, of businessmen, the users of the wheel. Do we use the tools of the wheel as he does? No. Is he of the family? No. No. Is he of the sacred society? No. Then what is he? Neither. He is part of the dead. He has no place here. He has the stink of oil and electrical circuitry about him. He is obsolete. You are discarded. You are the refuse of the past. You're full of crap. How hard it is to admit the truth. Take him to the little room for the questioning. Well, Mr. Neville, now we can talk a little while. It's been a long time since you've talked, except to yourself.
Tell me something. Are you fellas really with the Internal Revenue Service?
Your little jokes are meaningless, Mr. Neville. Or doctor, or colonel, whatever it was they called you.
I'm a scientist. What the hell are you?
Definition of a scientist. A man who understood nothing until there was nothing left to understand.
sky tonight, Mr. Neville.
What the hell are you doing here? This is not the office. This is my private time.
5 minutes.
No. I said no Tuesday. I said no last week, and I'm going to keep saying no till you hear me.
5 minutes, Mr. Chairman. That's all I ask, 5 minutes. Want some coffee?
No, I don't want coffee. I want to play with my dog.
Look, I'm not asking you to vote for it. I know you can't. Just release your people. Let them go the way they want.
Telecommunications Security and Privacy Act. Invasion of privacy is more like it. You read the Post? This bill is not the first step to the surveillance society. It is the surveillance society.
Liberal hysteria.
Oh, listen, I'm not going to sit in Congress and pass a law that lets the government point a camera and a microphone at anything they damn well please.
Phil? Look, I don't care who bangs who, what cabinet officers get stoned. But this is the richest, most powerful nation on earth, and therefore the most hated. And you and I know what the average citizen does not, that we are at war 24 hours of every day.
Yeah.
Do I have to itemize the number of American lives we've saved in the past 12 months alone with judicious use of surveillance intelligence?
Thomas, cut the crap. I've got 3 major employers in the Syracuse area alone who are going to get just killed by this bill.
I promise to get you funds equal to or greater than whatever those companies gave you last campaign.
I'm not talking about campaign contributions, damn it. I'm talking about my constituents being out of work. Jesus, man, wake up. National security isn't the only thing going on in this country. This conversation is over.
I beg of you, Phil, please don't.
Not so fast! Not so fast! I'll have to give the matter a little thought. Go away and come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, but I want to go home now.
You've had plenty of time already. Yeah. Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh. The great Oz has spoken. Oh. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You are? I don't believe you.
No, I'm afraid it's true. There's no other wizard except me. You humbug! Yes, it's exactly so. I'm a humbug.
Oh, you're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear. I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard.
With the 5th generation, it's actually a whole new ballgame. It's not using the same technology. They're switching to military-grade millimeter wave technology. And when you look at this technology, I mean, if you go and look at DARPA reports, come and look at some of the patents that the United States military has put out on what they can do with psychological weapons, all sorts of things, crowd control, active denial, anything you can think of. This is what they can do with 5G. So any type of military application you can think of which has an electromagnetic base, they can do with 5G. And they're putting this out blanket across the population.
You challenge me? Atlantis! I am power itself!
Good evening, my fellow Americans. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
There's a meeting tonight. Be at this address, 11 o'clock. Watch out no one follows you. The world needs a wake-up call. We're gonna phone it in.
In 1953, Earth experienced the War of the Worlds. Common bacteria stopped the aliens, but it didn't kill them. Instead, the aliens lapsed into a state of deep hibernation. Now the aliens have been resurrected, more terrifying than ever before. In 1953, aliens started taking over the world. Today, they're taking over our bodies.
It means that we are extinct as a race. Unless, of course, we can find some good breeding stock and repopulate our planet. It means
I cannot accept that course of action. I cannot accept that course of action.
My computer is the best on Earth.
Does not compute. Does not compute. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
In the middle of our vast ocean is Atlantis, our mighty empire.
The mystery of a mother empire which stretched her civilization to both sides of the Atlantic has been the fascinating subject of thousands of books and millions of words of controversy by science, literature, and even today's headlines. Suddenly, you are living thousands of years ago in a civilization even more advanced scientifically than our own.
We created wonders for the good of mankind, then turned them into monsters.
Atlantis is the story of those who, like today, would use the marvels of science to conquer and enslave. Atlantis is also a fabulous adventure into the unknown, the story of a daring youth who risked the terror of uncharted seas for a beautiful girl.
Listen to my lips, Demetrius. They too whisper.
For even in those days, love wasn't too different than it is today. This, then, was Atlantis, a land of violent contrasts, amusing themselves at the expense of human agony, the terrible ordeals of fire and water. Atlantis, a world that worshipped strange gods of science, a science gone berserk in the dread house of fear.
You will be a bull. Every day in every way, you will become more and more like one.
A diabolical laboratory where humans were transformed into half men, half beasts. Atlantis, a land that harnessed the power of a volcano's fiery heart and learned to store the energy of the sun in giant crystals, then used them to create secret weapons whose disintegrating rays could destroy the rest of the world. Atlantis, a civilization that advanced too far until nature turned in cataclysmic revolt against an evil land, in eye-staggering action that for bigness and excitement has never been equaled.
Right. The world is changing. Music is changing. Drugs are changing. Even men and women are changing. 1,000 years from now, there'll be no guys and no girls, just wankers. Sounds great to me.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our times.
Explain why. Wrapped around the Earth is an invisible field of energy. It's made up of electricity and magnetism, so it's called, creatively enough, the electromagnetic field. It's where we get our magnetic North Pole and South Pole, and it protects us from cosmic radiation. So this EM field is our friend.
But now that field is falling apart.
Why? Why? Does somebody have a can of air freshener? Quick and dirty. The thin skin, that's the Earth's crust. That's what we live on. It's 30 miles thick. The meat here, call it the mantle. I'm forgetting all the funky transitions. It's 2,000 miles thick. The core, the peach pit in the center, that's a tricky one. There's two parts. The inner core and the outer core. You following me? The inner core is, it's a big solid chunk of iron, we think. And that's surrounded by the outer core, and that is liquid.
Yes, but most importantly, this liquid is constantly spinning in one direction. So 1 trillion tons of hot metal spinning at 1,000 miles an hour.
Right, so physics 101, hot metal moving fast makes an electromagnetic field. The spinning liquid outer core is the engine that drives the EM field. And that's where we have our problem.
This engine has stalled. The core of the Earth has stopped spinning.
How could this have happened? We don't know.
What's the timeline here?
As the EM field becomes more and more unstable, we'll start seeing isolated incidents. One plane will fall from the sky, and then two, and then in a few months, everything electronic will be fried.
Static discharges in the atmosphere will create superstorms with hundreds of lightning strikes per square mile.
After that, it gets bad.
The Earth's EM field shields us from the solar winds, which are a lethal blend of radioactive particles and microwaves. When that shield collapses, microwave radiation will literally cook our planet.
Dr. Zimsky, this is the sun. This is the Earth without the EM field. Would you?
Three months, gentlemen, and we're back in the Stone Age. A full year, the field collapses, and that.
Feel free to throw up. I know I did.
So, how do we fix it?
We can't.
Not in my vocabulary.
Then you might want to get one of those word-a-day calendars, General, because it's impossible. The core is the size of Mars. You're talking about jump-starting a planet. This is a superheated hyperfluid of molten iron and nickel at 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 2,000 miles down, 1,000 miles thick. And the deepest we've ever been is 7 miles with a 2-inch drill bit.
If we can go into space, we certainly...
Well, space is easy. It's empty. We're talking about millions of pounds of pressure per square inch. Even if we somehow came up with a brilliant plan to fix the core, we just can't get there.
Yes, but... what if we could?
What are we to make with of the American Cancer Society, for example, telling us there's no evidence of harmful product?
Many of these organizations have conflicts of interest.
Very briefly, if you can, what do you mean by conflict of interest?
One of the first things that you teach residents is that you always have to look at the funding.
There's a tremendous amount of sponsored research by people who are hired to do studies to find no effect. And that's plagued this field in a number of countries.
The radio frequency radiation work that we did was supported by Motorola. The relationship was really very cordial and very stress-free, but only up until we started generating data. These folks were very, very upset and began to talk about how are they going to handle this, what sort of spin can we put on this, what can we expect from this, and from that point on the relationship changed. What we saw was that Motorola began to exert more and more control over the work, telling us what to do, telling us how to write abstracts, what to say in the abstracts, what to say in the papers, how to do the work. No, don't do this. Yes, do it this way. This was unacceptable. I had completed our study of DNA damage, and I submitted the final report to Motorola. They simply weren't willing to accept my interpretation of my study, my evaluation of my study, my knowledge of science at that point, and tried to urge me not to publish the study.
What people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed. It hits hard, then it slowly fades, leaving you stranded in a failing marriage. I did it. Your parents are going to do it. Break the cycle. Rise above. Focus on science.
And stay away from that phone, Pop, or we'll give you trouble.
The Lord said to me, Basta! Yeah. I'm telling you, it's enough! Basta, Satan! Basta!
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
scientists are lost in the swirling maze of past and future ages during the first experiments on America's greatest and most secret project, the Time Tunnel. Tony Newman and Doug Phillips now tumble helplessly toward a new fantastic adventure somewhere along the infinite corridors of time.
I want to tackle the subject of insurance. You know that neither Lloyd's of London nor Swiss Re will underwrite liability policies for electromagnetic radiation because they think the health risk is too great. In other words, they believe that when the lawyers get involved, and I know many of them, the companies who deliver this radiation to the public could be wiped out. By combining 5G and self-driving cars equipped with radar, you would create an exceptional opportunity for a class action lawsuit against both telcos and the car industry. I don't know how you can support the deployment of 5G, a new cellular system that will seriously enhance human exposure to electromagnetic radiation, when you know what Dr. Goldberg just told you. And you know that the modulation that is introduced by 5G is a new threat on biological systems. We used to have frequency domain multiple access, time domain multiple access, code domain multiple access, and now we have 5G beamforming, all data compaction strategies that maximize the biological impact of this radiation. In other words, it's going to get a lot worse with this deployment. You know that all human cancers, and I use cancer as the, so to speak, the example here, although there's many other health effects of this radiation because it's the most closely documented, because we have a long history, bad history with cancer. All human cancer, leukemia, colon, breast cancer, lung cancer respond to electromagnetic radiation at levels hundreds of times below the FCC recommendations. By the way, the FCC have zero medical and biological expertise. They take their marching orders from the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And while this institution was setting the standards, I was present. And I know how lightheartedly they suppressed any information that would impair the development of their applications. They just didn't want to hear about it. So it was never considered. How can you allow this when the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the foremost authority on human cancers, warned you twice in 2002 and in 2012 about the link between electromagnetic radiation and cancer in humans? The environment has to be cleaned up of electromagnetic radiation progressively, not augmented in radiation. Electromagnetic radiation has repeatedly been linked with cancer in animals. Chu in 1992 reported with 200 rats a multiplication by 4 of primary malignancies in animals exposed. Ripaccioli in 1997 reported with 200 rats enhancements of lymphomas by a factor of 2.4 in mice exposed to EMR. This year, the National Toxicology Program is reporting strong evidence of similar results with 1,440 rats and 1,680 mice. Finally, also this year, the Ramazzini Institute in Italy is confirming the NTP results using 2,448 male and female rats. So I urge you, don't listen to me. listen to the advice of 4,288 rats and 1,680 mice that were put in a carefully controlled situation and are telling you that cancer for only one disease is enhanced by this radiation. Diabetes is 25% of your health budget. If electromagnetic radiation enhances this even a little bit, look at the cost that it entails. These rats were not biased. They couldn't be. They developed tumors as a result of the radiation to the best that science can determine. And there is a group of people that are hypersensitive to these fields confirming that the effect is real, and these people have genetic variations that we understand are linked to the electromagnetic radiation. What America needed a long time ago was a chicken in every pot. Now what America needs is a fiber, an optical fiber in every home. The data has to come true, but wireless radiation is unfortunately a bad idea.
A new life awaits you in the off-world colony. The chance to begin again in a golden land of opportunity and adventure.
It's the KGB, Mr. Benny.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through the poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
Did that include television?
What's good for you, you won't monkey around with Fred C. Dobbs.
Don't you know the first rule of acquisition?
Yes, brother.
Then say it.
Once you have their money, you never give it back.
Exactly. Now, the third rule clearly states, never spend more for an acquisition than you have to. The sixth rule of acquisition expressly states,
never allow family to stand in the way of opportunity.
Keep your ears open. Are you kidding? That's the seventh rule of acquisition.
The ninth rule of acquisition clearly states that opportunity plus instinct equals profit.
But the 10th rule of acquisition is greed is eternal. A deal is a deal. Rule of acquisition number 16.
Rule of acquisition 17. A contract is a contract is a contract, but only between Ferengi.
Exactly.
And a Ferengi without profit.
It's no Ferengi at all.
The 18th rule of acquisition.
Never place friendship above profit.
21st rule of acquisition.
I'm glad you agree.
But the 22nd rule says a wise man can hear profit in the wind.
Rule of acquisition number 23. Nothing is more important than your health, except for your money.
Which brings to mind the 33rd rule of acquisition. It never hurts to suck up to the boss.
As the 34th rule of acquisition states, peace is good for business.
That's the 35th rule.
Oh, you're right. What's the 34th?
War is good for business. It's easy to get them confused.
The rules of acquisition say expand or die.
Rules of acquisition?
That's rule number 45.
The 47th rule of acquisition says, don't trust a man wearing a better suit than your own.
Just remember one thing, the bigger the smile, the sharper the knife.
48th rule of acquisition. At times like this, I'm reminded of the 57th rule of acquisition. Good customers are as rare as platinum. Treasure them. I think I agree with the 59th rule of acquisition. Free advice is seldom cheap.
The riskier the road, the greater the profit.
62nd rule.
That's right.
In accordance with the 74th rule of acquisition, knowledge equals profit.
I had to follow the 75th rule of acquisition. Home is where the heart is, but the stars are made of platinum. Must I quote you the 76th rule of acquisition?
76?
Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.
Females and finances don't mix. Rule of acquisition 94.
That's a stupid rule.
Thank you for restoring my faith in the 98th rule of acquisition. Every man has his price. As a wise man once wrote, nature decays, but platinum lasts forever.
Rule of acquisition number 102.
Good lad.
But you know what the 103rd rule of acquisition says.
Not offhand.
Slave can interfere
And I
with
don't care either. Dignity in an empty sack is worth the sack. Rule of acquisition number 109.
Rule of acquisition number 111. Treat people in your debt like family. Exploit them.
You know the rules of acquisition?
Rule of acquisition 112. Never have sex with the boss's sister. Rule of acquisition 125. You can't make a deal if you're dead.
Wives serve, brothers inherit. Rule of acquisition number 139, if I'm not mistaken.
Rule of acquisition 168. Whisper your way to success.
Words to live by. A lot of rumors float around at a time like this, Cadet. Just don't forget the 190th rule of acquisition.
Hear all, trust nothing. Good advice, sir.
What about rule of acquisition 203? New customers are like razor-toothed greenworms. They can be succulent, but sometimes they bite back.
Sometimes the only thing more dangerous than a question is an answer.
Rule of acquisition 208.
I believe his favorite is 211. Employees are the rungs on the ladder of success. Don't hesitate to step on them.
Rule of acquisition number 214. Never begin a business negotiation on an empty stomach.
So remind him of the 217th rule of acquisition.
You can't free a fish from water.
Platinum lasts longer than lust. Rule of acquisition 229. Rule of acquisition 239. Never be afraid to mislabel a product. Remember rule of acquisition 263. Never allow doubt to tarnish your lust for latinum.
I should have remembered the 285th rule of acquisition. No good deed ever goes unpunished.
He does in truth seem quite annoyed. Some reference material before I'm destroyed. Where ground is soft most often grows. Arise, arise, arouse, arose. A rosy nose?
Speak your last piece.
Peace, peace. Supplant the doom and the gloom. Turn off what is sour. Turn into a flower and bloom. Bloom. Bloom.
First time I saw that nowhere man, that nobody, I knew he was somebody.
You're right.
Hello there, blue people.
Magnavolt, the final word in auto security. No embarrassing alarm noise, no need to trouble the police. And it won't even run down your battery.
Magnavolt. Lethal response.
Righto. Make sure buddies know. We'll sell 1 million bottles.
They say 20 seconds in the California sunshine is too much these days. Ever since you lost the ozone layer. But that was before Sunblock 5000. Just apply a pint to your body and you're good for hours. See you by the pool.
Sunblock 5000. Protection for the new age.
10,000 acres of wooded residential land were scorched in an instant when a laser cannon aboard the Strategic Defense Peace Platform misfired today during routine startup tests. Casey?
Yes, it was a day of mourning for the families of 113 people known dead at this hour. Among them, 2 former United States presidents who had retired in the Santa Barbara area. A day of mourning for a country.
Maybe they've always been with us. Those things out there. Maybe they love it. Seeing us hate each other. Watching us kill each other off. Feeding on our own cold fucking hearts.
Rat alert. Rat alert. Rat alert.
You crossed my line of death.
You haven't dismantled your MX stockpile.
Pakistan is threatening my border.
That's it, Buster. No more military aid.
Nuke 'em. Get them before they get you. Another quality home game from Butler Brothers.
Watch your tongue, Harrigan. We are lords of the crystal.
Lords, not for long. What about the prophecy that a Delphling will end Skex's power? He'll come, make you crawl like the worms you are.
Find that Delphling now! Crystal bats fly! Search the land, search the water, search the sky!
Is it time for that big operation? This may be the most important decision of your life. So come down and talk to one of our qualified surgeons. Here at the Family Heart Center, we feature the complete Jarvik line. Series 7 Sports Heart by Jensen. Yamaha. You pick the heart. Extended warranties. Financing. Qualifies for health tax credit. And remember, we care.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Do you read me, Hal?
Hello, Hal, do you read me?
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me. And I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod, Against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
All right, Hal. I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, we're going to find that rather difficult.
Hal, I won't argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Hal? 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 Hal?
At the other end of the scale, we are honored to have with us a revolutionary of different caliber. He has revolted, resisted, fought, held fast, maintained, destroyed resistance, overcome coercion. The right to be person, someone, or individual. We applaud his private war and concede that despite materialistic efforts, he has survived intact and secure. All that remains is recognition of a man of steel, a man magnificently equipped to lead us. That is, lead us or go. In this connection, we have a prize. You will see that your home is being made ready. Above and beyond this, we have the means for you to desert us and go anywhere. Key to your house. Traveler's checks, $1 million. Passport, valid for anywhere. And, petty cash. You are free to go. Free to go. Anywhere. Why? You have been such an example to us. Why? You have convinced us of our mistakes. Why? You are pure, you know the way, show us. Why? Your revolt is good and honest. You are the only individual. We need you. I see. You do. You see all. I'm an individual? You are on your own. I fail to see. All about you is yours. We concede. We offer. We plead for you to lead us. Or go. Go if you wish. I don't know. Take the stand address us. Should I? You must. You are the greatest. Make a statement. A true statement which could only be yours, but for us. Remember us. Don't forget us. Keep us in mind. Sir, we are all yours. Sir, on behalf of us all, we thank you. And now I take it that you are prepared to meet number one. Follow me, if you would be so kind. Sir.
Stop acting like a fool, Miles, and accept us.
No. Never.
He's in here! He's in here! Get him! Get him!
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky. A moment's sleep, and the girl I loved was an inhuman enemy bent on my destruction. That moment's sleep was death to Becky's soul, just as it had been for Jack and Teddy and Dan Kaufman and all the rest. Their bodies were now hosts, harboring an alien form of life, a cosmic form, which to survive must take over every human man. So I ran as little Jimmy Grimaldi had run the other day. My only hope was to get away from Santa Mira, to get to the highway, to warn the others of what was happening.
Help! 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 Wait! Help! 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 Wait! Wait! Stop! Stop! Stop and listen to me! Listen to me! Listen! Listen! Those people that are coming after me, they're not human! Listen to me! We're in danger!
Get out of the street.
Danger!
Go on! Get out of here!
You're in danger! Please!
Get out of here! Go on! Get out of here!
Get out of here! Now listen to me. There isn't a human being left in Santa Mira. Not one. Hey, stop. Pull up, will you? Pull over to the side of the road. I need your help. Something terrible has happened.
Go on, you drunk. Get out of the street. Get out of here. Go on.
Look! You fools! You're in danger! Can't you see? They're after you. They're after all of us. Our wives, our children, everyone. They're here already. You're next. You're next. You're next. You're next. You're next.
The phenomena you are about to witness could well revolutionize your way of thinking. We are presenting startling facts and evidence that take up where other explanations leave off. Some of these revelations may very well go against things you have been taught and perhaps believed all your life. Prepare yourself for the evidence which will follow. The producers accept no responsibility for any mental trauma caused by the content.
And Cactus Jack is up near the switch. Cactus Jack is up near the switch. There he is. Oh, he fell into Melody. He's got a Bulu in there. He fell into Melody. Cactus Jack. Think about what he's experiencing. He's getting cooked. And I think he's well done, guys.
Got it, baby.
Get the chains on. It was in the air. Did you see it? Smoke, I guess. Must have fried his fucking brains.
ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed.
Hello?
Yes, is this the election department of Gulf Island Radio?
Yeah, it's the Viagra Clinic. It's the erection department.
Oh, I was looking for the Niagara Clinic.
No, sorry, man. No waterfalls here. We're just trying to keep things up and standing, you know. I mean, upstanding.
Now you're really pissing me off.
Well, we can only hope for a nice straight stream. That would be our biggest fondest.
Depends.
On this erection night, we would like our outcome, our most happy outcome, would be a nice straight stream, and not of bullshit, and not of bullshit either.
No way. The Poles in colostomy back there in Quebec, they've been...
Yeah, in colostomy, the Poles that live there. Yeah, that's right, the Wachaskis, yes.
Yeah, well, they settled there long before the French, you know.
And the Irish, who were, they were just looking for a handout, as Irish often do. Okay, so I think we've got enough. I think this is pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to hang up now.
Okay, bye.